Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Hello everyone, welcome to this weekly series of Indian Express Explained discussion session. The articles that we have chosen for first week of August are there on your screen. The idea here is to have minimal overlap with DNS. We have started this series with the intention of providing wider coverage of current affairs to students without redundancy. We will begin with this explain article. What does RBI move to keep rates steady and hike inflation target mean? See, presently the Indian economy is facing a paradoxical situation. Growth rate is much lower than expected, and at the same time, inflation rate is high. With this, RBI is also put in a paradoxical situation, an economic dilemma as to what it should do. Should it have an accommodative policy stance? That means to reduce or at least keep the rate same. That will help increase the liquidity in the economy and will help bring the growth back on track. Or it should increase the policy rate so as to fight inflation. RBI, in its latest policy stance decision, has made it clear that its focus is on growth. It has not increased the policy rates. See, it's a dilemma. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot have high growth rate and at the same time very low inflation rate with one tool. That is the policy rate tool in the hands of the RBI. You cannot win both. But at the same time, inflation and GDP growth rate are related. Both high inflation rate and low inflation rate is considered to be detrimental for economy. When the inflation rate is high, that implies that there is general increase in the price level. That increase in price level will cut into the pockets of people and decrease their saving. Decreased saving, high prices will obviously result in lower demand. If the demand in the economy decreases, as it was the case during lockdown, then the investment will decrease. If people are not buying goods and services, there is no point creating them. With decreased investment, the engine of growth will start slowing down. The economy will start moving towards recession, and there will be problems. Job creation will be directly impacted. So, if inflation rate remains high on a sustainable basis over a period of time, that will result in decline in GDP growth rate. However, if the rate of inflation remains low, that is equally detrimental for the economy. Low inflation rate means there is general decrease in the price level. When that happens, then the incentive for the manufacturers decreases. Low price level means low profit margin. In an open economy or mixed economy, profit margin is driver of production. Production will decrease, the investment plan will be shelved, there will be lower investment in economy. Investment is the driver, investment is the fuel for engine of growth. If there will be less investment, that will obviously mean decline in GDP growth rate. So inflation can be said to be a necessary evil. You cannot do away with it. That's not in the interest of economy. But you also cannot allow it to outgrow its suitable level. So inflation basically has to be tamed. It has to be kept in the desirable range. And it's such an important job that it's the core function of the central bank. The main job of RBI is to control inflation. RBI has to meet the flexible inflation targeting mechanism that has been put in place. The Monetary Policy Committee of RBI has to ensure that the inflation targets are met. The inflation target is set by the central government, and that is done once in a 5 year. The inflation target presently is in terms of consumer price index. This mechanism of flexible inflation targeting was introduced in 2016 by amending the RBI Act 1934. The present flexible inflation targeting, as per the monetary policy agreement between the government and the RBI, mandates the Monetary Policy Committee of RBI to maintain the inflation target of 4% with upper and lower tolerance rate of 2%. That means inflation has to be maintained in the range of 2 to 6%. But the RBI does not seem to be focusing on its core job of controlling inflation because wholesale price index has increased to 25-year high of 12.94% according to the RBI data released in the month of May this year. And CPI has increased to 6.3% according to the data of RBI in May this year. So clearly, CPI has shooted above the upper tolerable limit of 6%. Wholesale price index is also very high. But RBI is not increasing policy rates because RBI is in the state of economic dilemma. Inflation is high, there is need to control it because inflation not only puts additional burden on people, it puts the whole economic revival into jeopardy. So, from that point of view, RBI must increase the policy rate. However, if the RBI increases the policy rate, it would lead to increase in the rate of interest on loans because increasing policy rate will mean less amount of liquidity availability in the market. So the banks to keep their profit margins same will increase the interest rate naturally. Higher interest rate in the economy would mean the cost of borrowing is high that will decrease the investment, ultimately resulting in lower rate of economic revival. So from this point of view, RBI should not increase, it should either decrease or it should maintain the current policy rate. So clearly, RBI is in a fix. It's a classical state of economic dilemma. But dilemma must be resolved, decision must be made, and RBI has taken its decision. In the latest monetary policy decision, RBI has decided to continue with its accommodative policy stance. RBI has kept the policy rates unchanged. This is the seventh time in a row that RBI has decided in its policy stance to not change the policy rate. At this juncture, this is as accommodative as RBI can be for the investors. Although RBI has not reduced the policy rate, but in the background of galloping inflation, this is the most an investor can ask for. So RBI has resolved its economic dilemma by maintaining status quo, by not increasing the policy rate, by keeping it the same. So RBI, in the dilemma of choosing the road to control inflation or to bring growth on track, RBI has walked the path that leads to higher growth. A dilemma must be resolved with reason. RBI choosing growth rate over inflation must have certain reason, some strong economic backing. In order to understand that, we have to look into the reasons for rise in inflation rate recently in India. The most important reason for rise in inflation recently in India is high level of inflation in the imported product, like crude oil, edible oil. Then there is high inflation rate for certain food items, like eggs, edible oils, fruits, pulses. The high inflation rate for pulses has a generic systemic reason. High rate of inflation for these food items has something to do with the supply chain management. It is not the case of demand pull inflation that you increase the policy rate, decrease the money supply, and tackle inflation. That won't work here because inflation rate is not high because of high demand. The third reason for high inflation rate is low base effect. Last year, because of lockdown, the prices became too low. So comparative to last year, the prices currently are very high. So because of low base effect, low prices last year, the inflation seems to be high. All in all, the inflation rate, which obviously is high, but is not because of the reason of high demand. Inflation is high mostly because of supply side factors. Supply side factors have to be fixed by infrastructure development. So RBI believes that increase in policy rate would have limited impact in controlling inflation. We have discussed previously in the DNS, you must also have read in the newspaper, that present economic growth and inflation both actually has to be tackled by government. RBI has done its best but has failed to bring the economic revival to the extent and with the momentum that was expected. The thing is that overall demand in economy is low. When the demand is low, even if RBI does its best to increase the liquidity, there is no takers of loan. Investors are showing nervousness. And since demand is low, it's not the case of demand pull inflation. So inflation can also not be tackled by monetary policy tools. So that's the rationale behind not increasing the policy rate. Better keep it same if not decrease it. Now we shall take up this explained article. Here's why Gilgit-Baltistan matters to India and Pakistan. Let's begin looking at the map first. Gilgit-Baltistan is this region that has been illegally occupied by Pakistan. A part of it already has been gifted by Pakistan to the dear friend China. Officially, Gilgit-Baltistan is part of Union Territory of Ladakh now. Just to have a little bit of backgrounder, You must know that before independence, Gilgit-Baltistan region was part of princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. But it was ruled by Britishers directly. Raja Hari Singh gave this region on lease to Britishers in 1935. This region, as you can see from its location, was the great game region for British and Russians. But in 1947, when Britishers were going, they returned it back to Raja Hari Singh. Raja Hari Singh acceded the state of Jammu and Kashmir to India. But the Gilgit Scouts, the small army that Britishers raised there, they stood in rebellion and proclaimed independent state of Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit Scouts were able to gain control of Gilgit-Baltistan region and they acceded to Pakistan on the promise of provincial autonomy. But since Gilgit-Baltistan region was part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and Raja Hari Singh legally acceded it to India, so Gilgit-Baltistan naturally becomes part of Indian territory. Nevertheless, Pakistan got control of this region on the fictitious promise of provincial autonomy to the region. When the constitution of Pakistan came into force, it recognized only four provinces: Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, and Khyber Pakhtun. Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan were not incorporated as provinces. But there was difference in the way this two region was ruled. Pakistan occupied Kashmir had its own constitution. Gilgit-Baltistan was executive controlled. There used to be one assigned minister for this region. But a sudden splash of change has happened. Pakistan's Law and Justice Ministry has finalized a draft legislation to make Gilgit-Baltistan a province of the country. So far, Pakistan has not been gradually devolving power. Pakistan still has a concerned minister for the region. But a sudden split and why Pakistan has shown this change of stand. One reason that is given by strategists as to why Pakistan did not take this measure before was to not fault on its Kashmir strategy. Pakistan wanted to show to the world that it is following the UN resolution that asked for a plebiscite to resolve the Kashmir issue. Pakistan wanted to show rather India as an aggressor state, Pakistan being just the defender of rights of people. So it was not intruding too much into the Gilgit-Baltistan region, staying clear of making it a province. So what's happening now is seen as a Chinese design. China has done a huge investment of around $60 billion in its CPEC project. Recently, the Pakistani government also has started the Mandarin language in the Gilgit-Baltistan region. We have seen previously that China already has taken a chunk from Gilgit-Baltistan region. In 1963, China had an agreement with Pakistan that once the Kashmir issue is settled, then the possessor of Kashmir will get into a renegotiation with China. China had an eye on the region for long, and because of increasing stake of China in the region, Pakistan seems to have been pressurized by China to take this step. And this is seen as the first step in the process of making this region a colony of China. If you look at the map little curiously, you will figure out the geostrategic importance of this region for China, India, and Pakistan. See, for China, the Gwadar port has no meaning without Gilgit-Baltistan, and China wants Gwadar port. China got interested in building this right in 2001 when US invaded Afghanistan. US was entering into Central Asia and Afghanistan on the pretext of fighting terrorism, but China got alarmed by it. China wanted to secure its energy supply. For that purpose, it had to link this Gwadar port with the Xinjiang region of China above Gilgit-Baltistan. So this loosely controlled region by Pakistan must be converted into a tightly controlled region by China. Although China wanted Gwadar port for strategic purpose and for energy security, but it did realize that without linkage of road and rail, this Gwadar port is not of much help for China, and hence came into being the project CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. China is said to have invested around $60 billion in this project. So the stakes have become much high. The Xinjiang region of China is around 2,500 kilometers from Arabian Sea, and it is around 4,500 kilometers from the coast of Pacific. So if China wants to have sea connectivity for Western region, must it connect the Western region to the Arabian Sea? And this is the pathway for that. China seems to have building this path well, fixing this point at the Gwadar port already, now trying to fix the other end of the path. The Gilgit-Baltistan region holds high importance for Pakistan as well. Pakistan wanted this Gwadar port. The Gilgit-Baltistan region holds high the Gilgit-Baltistan region holds high it's just around 120 km away. But the main driver that led Pakistan to get into agreement with China to build Gwadar port was economic difficulty of Pakistan. Pakistan saw this as an opportunity to come out of the economic crisis that the nation was going through and still going through. Pakistan wanted to make this Dubai of the Arabian Sea or the Singapore of the Strait of Malacca. Pakistan used to see this as trading opportunity. But the first trading opportunity will obviously come from China through the Xinjiang region of China, and that route has to pass through Gilgit-Baltistan. It is suggested that Pakistan has agreed to make Gilgit-Baltistan region as a province because of huge economic bonanza that it hopes will come through the CPEC project. The CPEC project would be part of Road and Belt Initiative of China. With adequate infrastructure of road and rail built in the CPEC project, it will also connect to the Karakoram highway. On top of that, if TAPI project is completed, Pakistan hopes to convert itself into a transit state from where the energy supply from Central Asia can pass through to this part of the Asia. So Pakistan hopes to arrest its economic instability through these projects. And hence Pakistan is giving concession to China. Even the Pakistani army is on board on this. Pakistan has been using this region for terror camps. But giving provincial autonomy and more hold of China in this region will take away that quote unquote leverage from Pakistan. But still, the economic crisis is so huge that Pakistan is ready to give it up. For India, this region is also of immense importance. By making it a province, Pakistan is detaching this region from Pakistan occupied Kashmir. But India lay claim on the entire region. The entire region is part of India. Increasing Chinese interference and their stake through the CPEC will make it difficult for India to have a bilateral solution to the Kashmir issue with Pakistan. So, converting this region into a province and more so granting more say of China in this region does not bode well with India's sovereign claim over this region. We shall now discuss this explained article, Why Atlantic Ocean Current System is Slowing Down and its Implication. The Atlantic Ocean current system has got slowest in last 1,000 years. In fact, it has been reported that it has become slowest since the Ice Age. Atlantic Ocean current system is also called as Atlantic Ocean Meridional Overturning Current. In last 1,000 years, its speed has decreased by 15%. Although the direct data on the speed of these currents we have since 2004, but there are indirect methods to calculate the speed in the past. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) in its 2019 special report said that the Atlantic Ocean meridional overturning circulation has weakened relative to 1850 to 1900. And according to the report of IPCC released day before yesterday on 9th of August, it is very likely that Atlantic Ocean meridional overturning current will decline over the 21st century. The authors of the report are also of the opinion that by the end of 21st century it may be the case that the speed of these ocean currents will decline so much that it will break the threshold and there will be complete instability. The ocean current system will not be able to sustain itself. The speed of Atlantic Ocean meridional overturning current system must be seen in the context of other facts. For example, Bifrost Sea in the Arctic has gained 2/5 more fresh water in last 20 years. So much fresh water has come that water could be overflowing from the sea into the Atlantic. The slowing down of Atlantic Ocean currents and increasing water in the Arctic region can change the weather pattern throughout the world. See, Gulf Stream, as you can see in the map here, is one part of the global ocean conveyor belt. There are many ocean currents in this conveyor belt, And the conveyor belt altogether is extremely important. These ocean currents and wind currents, they maintain stability in the climate, in the weather pattern, in the temperature differentials all around the world. If substantial change happens to the circulation of ocean current, then the entire stability of global weather pattern will collapse. Ocean currents are extremely important for our climate. Ocean currents, as you can see in this map, connects 4 out of the 5 oceans of the world. And they transfer heat, they transfer salinity, they transfer mass, they transfer nutrient from one ocean to other, from one part of the world to other. And hence they are extremely important for global climatic stability. This movement of ocean current is also called as thermohaline circulation. Thermo is for temperature and haline is for the salt content of water, the salinity. Now we are just getting started up. There are 2 things that decide movement of ocean current. One is temperature, the other is salinity of the water. The temperature and salinity are the 2 most important determinant that dictates or decides the movement of water throughout the ocean and hence the pattern of this thermohaline circulation. There is no doubt that the wind movement, the circulation of wind, that also helps in the movement of ocean current, but density of water is a better and more important determinant. Density of water will be decided by the temperature of water and salinity of water. We will talk specifically about Gulf Stream and not much of other ocean current in this discussion. Gulf Stream begins in this equatorial region. The water here is hotter because of higher insolation, and southeast trade winds are flowing in this region. Remember, for trade winds or for winds, the name comes from the direction from which wind is coming. The wind is going in the northwest direction but is coming from southeast, so it is called as southeast trade wind. For ocean currents, the name is given according to the direction it is going to and not coming from. For wind, the name is given as per the direction it is coming from. So wind going in this direction is actually southeast trade wind. Trade wind because it is in this region of equatorial region. So southeast trade wind will be pushing the water in this region northwest. And hence a northwest current will start flowing. It will reach to the Gulf of Mexico. Since it's a compact small water mass here, the heating will be very intense. And the water will reach around 30 degrees Celsius in Gulf of Mexico. By now we have moved to the other side of equator and now the wind is southwest and the Gulf Stream will now be moving northwest. This is how it begins. But this is not how it ends. Towards the mid of Atlantic Ocean there is bifurcation. One of the stream goes towards the Canary Ocean current flowing along the western coast of Africa, and the other, which will now be called as North Atlantic Drift, will be moving towards Norway, touching the coast of Britain, Western Europe. There is a third stream moving towards north, not shown here, and that meets with the cold current coming from the top, this Labrador current. Now understand one thing, the water mass that began its movement from the equatorial region will have to face evaporation throughout its journey. This ocean current will be moving like a ribbon of water, a separate body mass maintaining its composition. So throughout its flow, the salt content of the water is going to increase because the water is going to face evaporation, but the salt is not going to get evaporated. It's going to remain in the water mass. So composition wise, the percentage content of salt will keep on increasing. And temperature? Temperature will keep on decreasing. By the time the ocean current reaches here, it will be cold and the salt percentage will be high. Density, what will happen to density? When the temperature is higher, the density is less. Since the temperature has decreased considerably, the density will increase because of this factor. And because the percentage composition of salt has increased, the density will again increase because of this factor. So the density of water around this region will be much higher. And you know, if density of a mass increases, in this case the water mass, it will sink down. So when the Gulf Stream reaches the coast of Norway, it starts sinking down like this. If observed from the ocean floor, it's a huge waterfall. The water is dropping by from the top of the ocean to the ocean floor. The width of this waterfall is 15 kilometer and it falls down to the range of 4,000 meter. The total water falling through this waterfall is more than the flow of all the rivers on the earth combined. There is an intense downward mass flow in this region. And when there is higher mass flow, you will understand that the conveyor belt will be pulled forward. So more and more water from the equatorial region will be coming to the higher latitude and will sink down. This water sinks down and then come up again at the top of the ocean on lower latitude. This is how this part of the ocean current, this part of the entire ocean conveyor belt works. Before we move forward to understand as to why this part of the conveyor belt is slowing down, let's see this question from 2012 prelims examination. The question was, which of the above factors influence the ocean currents? Options are rotation of the earth, air pressure and wind, density of the ocean water, revolution of the earth. When we began understanding the origin of Gulf Stream, we saw that it is under the influence of wind that the movement of water mass begins. And then the ocean current takes a turn because the wind has taken a turn. And wind has taken the turn because of Coriolis' force, because of rotation of earth. Because of rotation of earth, a pseudo force comes into picture which is called as Coriolis' force, and it turns the moving wind and moving water to right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in southern hemisphere. And we have seen here that because of increased density, the water mass starts sinking. So definitely the rotation of the earth creates Coriolis' force, it turns the wind, it turns the water, it has an effect on ocean current. Air pressure and wind are also having very important effect on direction and the speed of the ocean current. Density of ocean water actually is extremely important for thermohaline circulation, but the revolution of earth as such has nothing to do with the pattern and movement and the speed of ocean currents. It's the rotation, not the revolution. So the answer would be option B. Then in 2013, UPSC has asked a question in prelims. The most important fishing grounds of the world are found in regions where? The answer is warm and cold oceanic currents meet. If you see in this map, the cold Labrador current is coming from the higher latitude. It meets the Gulf Stream in this region. And this region is one of the most famous fishing ground in the world. The reason is warm current coming from the equatorial region brings lots of nutrients. And when cold and warm current mixes, it creates the temperature that is very enabling for growth of fishes. So that temperature condition that is built here, along with the presence of nutrient, very helpful for breeding of fishes, and hence these regions become very important fishing grounds. Now let's come to understand as to why the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation is slowing down. And now it also must be very clear to you as to why we are calling it Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Because the water here has overturned from top to the bottom and then back to the top. And that has happened almost in the same meridian in the Atlantic Ocean. And hence the name Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. The question is why this or the Gulf Stream is slowing down. The answer to that we have already discussed. When the current was sinking down, it was creating a huge mass flow. And this mass flow was pulling the rest of the ocean current towards this region. There was mass flow. Why? Because there was high density here. Why? Because the temperature was less and the density was high. And the salt content was high. The salinity was high. Meaning it was cold and salty. If you change this condition, if the coldness decreases or if the saltiness decreases, then both of them will decrease the density. If the density will be decreased, then sinking will be decreased. And hence the pulling up of the Gulf Stream will be less. So the flow will be decreased. Now it is simple for you and it is very intuitive for you to understand how the coldness and the saltiness is decreasing. As the answer is to most of the problem, the same is here, global warming. Because of global warming, the Arctic region is becoming warm. Greenland is melting. Now there is higher rainfall in the region. And because of the melting of glaciers, Greenland, the flow of fresh water into the northern seas is increasing. Water is flowing to such a great extent, as we have talked before in the beginning, that water from the Beaufort Sea passing the archipelagos of Canada, has been coming down to Labrador Sea. So the temperature is getting increased, the water in this region is becoming less cold, and rainfall is increasing. Flow of fresh water because of melting of glaciers is increasing. So the salinity will decrease, and both of them will decrease the density, and hence the overturning will be decreased. So the circulation will decrease and the speed will slow down. What's even more important to understand and anticipate is the impact of slowing down of the Gulf Stream. Because the Gulf Stream reaches to the Norwegian coast, it crosses the Britain coast, the western coast of Europe. This entire region is 7 degrees Celsius hotter than what ideally it would have been by the virtue of lying at this latitude. Norway is at very high latitude. So is Britain and most of the Western European region. But if you look at the temperature map, look at this region of Britain, Western Europe, they are not cold. If you compare to other regions of United States at the same latitude, they in fact lies in the hotter region. The Norwegian coast, surprisingly, even at lying at this high latitude, they are not very cold if you compare this from other region on the western side. So the Norwegian port actually work all around the year. There are lush green fields in the Western Europe, even in Britain, which otherwise would have never been possible. And all of that is why, because of the North Atlantic drift, which emanates from the Gulf Stream. If the Gulf Stream is becoming slower, meaning less water is going to reach to this region. With less water will come less heat, and hence the temperature will go down in this region. Gulf Stream carries enormous amount of heat equivalent to what will be created by millions of nuclear reactors. The flow of water in Gulf Stream is 15 times more than Amazon River, and hence rightly it is called as a heat pump of the earth. So slowing down of Gulf Stream, which has slowed down by around 15%, further slowing down will have disastrous impact, and scientists have estimated if it goes down to 30%, it will become completely unstable. So water from Gulf Stream 100, 200 years down the line might stop reaching to this height. The effect is going to be on both sides of Atlantic, not just on the eastern side, but on the western side as well. On the western side of Atlantic, meaning at the eastern coast of US, there too effect is going to be disastrous. See, in the beginning we have talked about that the Gulf Stream after the Gulf of Mexico takes northwestern direction. This happens under the influence of trade wind, which from southeast trade wind starts to become southwest trade wind. But apart from that, there is another factor as well, the effect of Coriolis force. Coriolis force depends on largely two things. One is the latitude. At equator, the Coriolis force is 0. At the pole, the effect of Coriolis force is highest. But apart from that, Coriolis force also depends on velocity. When velocity or speed decreases, Coriolis force also decreases. So if air current or ocean current is moving with higher speed, then the bending will also be higher. If it is moving with lower speed, then the bending will be lower. So if the Gulf Stream speed decreases, then its bending will also decrease, meaning now it will divert less from the eastern coast of US. And if that diversion is less, then piling up of water will be more towards the eastern coast of US. If hot water is piling up, the chances of flooding, the chances of cyclone will be higher. The third effect that already has been observed and documented is that of cold blob. See, if you look at the heat map of this region, you will see this patch which is being observed as colder. If the flow of Gulf Stream decreases in this region, then the heat pump will become less effective. Less of the heat will be transferred from the equatorial region to the higher latitude. So the certain region in midway will be observed to be colder than ideally what it would have been. And if these are the patches of cold blob being developed, then the entire temperature stability, the climatic stability, the weather pattern stability is going to be collapsed. An unpredictable weather pattern, cyclone, sea level rise, anything can be observed. Since in the beginning we saw the global conveyor belt, they are made up of individual ocean currents. So effect on one ocean current is bound to have effect on the entire conveyor belt. We have seen that one arm of the Gulf Stream actually feeds into the Canary Current that is flowing along the western coast of Africa. It is relatively colder current because the hot current that began from the equatorial region now has moved to a higher latitude and is coming down from higher latitude to lower latitude. So it's a cold current marked in blue. If the Gulf Stream slows down and the overturning that we have talked about in this region decreases, then more water from the Gulf Stream will actually be flowing in this region towards the Canary Current. And if the flow of cold current in this region increases, then the chances of precipitation will further decrease. So the Sahara region in northern Africa will further become drought prone. This will be one immediate impact of slowing down of Gulf Stream on another ocean current and hence the associated geographical impact. How this butterfly effect will lead to a total catastrophe, that is still a matter of research. But definitely the slowing down of Gulf Stream has raised alarm bell for whole of humanity. We had to discuss this explain article as well. Status check on world climate. This article was to be discussed in the context of the 6th report of IPCC, which has been released day before yesterday. But we will not do the discussion because it has already been done in yesterday's DNS, dated 10th of August. Jatin sir in this discussion has elaborately discussed about the present status of climate change and the efforts that have been taken to arrest the effect of climate change. So the status of present world climate in the context of IPCC's 6th assessment report must be referenced from the DNS of 10th of August.